Welcome along, everybody, to hear some further detail about what the Prime Minister announced a short while ago over at the other side of town. That's the reason we're a little bit late, because everything was on the other side of town. So welcome and thank you for your patience. Prime Minister, Minister, welcome. Ministers Wagner and Adams as well, welcome along. Everybody else, it's lovely to see you here for what is a very important event in the redevelopment of the city. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Honourable Jerry Brownlee to tell you more about it.
Well, thank you, John. That's good. I thought the Prime Minister was doing this. So can I acknowledge the Prime Minister and thank you for being here today. And just also say I think the speech you've just delivered outlines a very clear path for the future here in Canterbury. For those of you who weren't there, the Prime Minister has announced some of the arrangements that we'll go through transitioning away from Sarah back to more normal arrangements here in the city over the next few years, and we'll work closely with the Christchurch City Council to achieve it. But one of the things that we did very early on, you'll recall, is bring down a blueprint for what ideally Christchurch might look like in the years ahead. And a significant part of that was closing up the area of the CBD and making an effort to get more people living close into the central city, to create that sort of dynamic that makes cities all around the world very exciting and livable. We're doing that on a smaller scale, but today marks a very significant occasion because it is the formal announcement that Fletcher Living have won the contract to, or have won the correct, have won the opportunity to pursue a contract. You just got to keep their pencil sharp if you don't, to provide some 940 apartments and townhouses in what's known as the East Frame in 3 blocks along this particular part of the city. It'll go across the north just past the Margaret Mahy Playground and create quite a significant effect, if you like, separating the CBD from living areas. The work that's gone into this has been considerable. The sort of planning exercise that has to go into these things is not small. They can't be rushed. And I'd like to particularly acknowledge Rob Kerr and his team for the work that they've done, and those others who've been part of that. They can be pretty pleased at getting to where we are today. So I think that's about all I need to do, John, by way of indicating where we're at. Can I say we're very excited about it. It will mean that 18 months on from the signing day, the first of those houses will come into the market and available for occupation. So it is a very significant step in achieving a big part of the anchor projects that the government's committed to as part of what we are now calling the regeneration of Christchurch. So with those words, can I invite Graham Darlow, I think, to make a few comments. Oh, Steve, you're doing it. Well, look, you're a bit like me, Graham, you know, or the Prime Minister, I should say, very much like the Prime Minister. You don't need to bark if you've got a dog here to do it for you. So Steve, that's you and me. Here is the podium, sir.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Prime Minister, for coming, and also other ministers and important guests and dignitaries. First of all, this is a great opportunity to show what we can do to help the regeneration of the city. We've worked together with Sarah and with the Christchurch City Council to spend the last 12 months developing some ideas and developing our plans for this important area which will rejuvenate the city. We expect when we're finished that we'll have 940, as the Minister has said, 940 townhouses and apartments. They will be delivered over a time frame of about 8 to 10 years. I won't go into the detail of the individual lots, but do welcome you to have a look around and explain, and we can explain what those sections are. Effectively, when we looked at the East Frame, it was about how do you take a considerable piece of land and break it into little bits and say, how do each of the parts that relate to the northern side of the east frame, which is the interrelationship with the Margaret May playground. How do you get the central bits, which have quite a dialogue with the centre of the city, and then the southern parts that have more of an interrelationship with the innovation precinct and those Vodafone and other occupants down in that area. So the massing, the configuration of those individual lots reflect its interrelationship with each of those parts. At Fletcher Living, we're obviously honoured to be selected as the partner to evolve to a position of getting to a contract. I think that's the adequate way of saying it. Importantly, it's about how we then maintain that dialogue with not just the people that we've engaged with to get at the present time in terms of Sarah and other stakeholders, but how do we get the community engaged in that next process of how does the linear park address the residential, how does the upgrades of Manchester Street and the busways along there allow that centre of the city to be rejuvenated. I guess the other part that to me is very important is not just what will it look like at the end of the day, but how do we deal with the day 1 to day 365, the first year? How do we make sure that we do our part to bring people back into the city? And certainly the commitment that we have as a business is going to be crystallised in terms of how do we allow some of the vacant sites we've got for temporary use. So how do we look at covered markets? How do we look at playgrounds and other facilities that aren't there at the moment that allow Cantabrians to come back into the city, to realise how good it is in terms of a destination. And by doing that, then clearly what we do is we play our part. And to that end, we have said as part of this bid process that we'll contribute the first $1 million to allowing that to happen. So bringing people back in, creating those facilities, and we welcome the public's input in terms of how that occurs. It is a long journey. It won't be done overnight, and I think it's important that when we talk about what we want to do, it's creating the communities. The houses are just the result of creating a good community for Christchurch, and our commitment to Cantabrians is let's work together to be able to deliver that over the not too distant future. I won't go too much in terms of the areas. I think it's fair to probably show the video that goes through the process. I would like, however, to just acknowledge a few of our team members that have been instrumental in terms of pulling this together. We've pulled together local architects and overseas architects, DKO out of Australia, Architectors out of here, Davis Ogilvie from a planning and an engineering point of view have all been part of the team that have helped develop what we have done to date, and certainly thanks to those guys and the girls that have been involved in that process. So I think that's probably all I need to say. We are very, very pleased to be part of the process. We hope to get to a position of as the Minister has said, to deliver houses within 18 months of getting that agreement signed, and let's bring it on, so to speak. So thank you again, and we'll take questions as we go round, I think.
Very good. Thank you very much for that, Steve. And it's really exciting, and we're really looking forward to seeing this come through to fruition. Everybody, that concludes the formalities. Please take the opportunity to look around some of the collateral around the walls, and thank you very much for coming.